In recent developments surrounding WWE's corporate governance and its merger with Endeavor, Stephanie McMahon is now among several high-profile names set to be deposed in a shareholder lawsuit. The case, currently in the discovery phase, revolves around allegations that former WWE chairman Vince McMahon manipulated the sale process so he could retain power, rather than allowing other buyers, some of whom potentially would have insisted on his departure. As legal proceedings ramp up, deponents and subpoenas are being scheduled, raising questions about internal board discussions, communications, and motivations behind major decisions. Background: WWE, Endeavor, and the merger. To understand the lawsuit's significance, it helps to review what led to the current legal drama. WWE and Endeavor merger. In 2023, WWE merged with UFC's parent company under Endeavor, creating a new entity called TKO. Allegations by shareholders. The plaintiffs, led by the Ohio Laborers Pension Fund, allege that Vince McMahon steered the process toward Endeavor because he believed they would allow him to remain in an influential role. Other potential bidders, per the lawsuit, presumably would not have agreed to keep McMahon in power amid ongoing sexual misconduct allegations from 2022. Board changes. Stephanie McMahon, formerly a co-CEO and serving on WWE's board, resigned in early 2023, precisely after Vince McMahon returned to leadership following his resignation in mid-2022. These are the foundational claims. The shareholder lawsuit asserts that certain fiduciary duties were breached, i.e. that the board and top executives had an obligation to act in the best interests of all shareholders, not just protect the influence of one individual. Who is affected? Names to be deposed and subpoenaed. Here are the people and entities either already or soon expected to provide testimony under oath, or to be subpoenaed for documents, as part of the legal discovery. Person, entity, role, relation to WWE, Endeavor status and scheduled deposition or subpoena. Stephanie McMahon, former company CEO, board member, daughter of Vince McMahon, deposition scheduled October 24, 2025. Prosecutors will likely probe what she knew about her father's return, her own resignation, and internal discussions about the merger. Ari Emanuel, CEO of Endeavor, the acquiring company in the merger, deposed under oath on December 2, 2025, to face questions about his negotiations with McMahon and the terms of the merger. Frank A. Riddick III, former WWE executive and board member, deposition scheduled October 28, 2025. Though he was initially named as a defendant, he has been dropped, still relevant to what he knows. Vince McMahon, former chairman and key central figure of the litigation, scheduled to be deposed on November 12, 2025. Paul, Triple H, Levesque, WWE's chief content officer and board member, v. McMahon's son-in-law, scheduled to be deposed on November 4, 2025. Brad Bloom, former executive, closely associated with McMahon, now heading a venture, 14th and I, deposition scheduled for November 14, 2025 at WWE headquarters. Mark Zhu, executive vice president of strategy for TKO, Endeavor, deposition scheduled for December 5, 2025. Nick Khan, WWE president, rescheduled deposition date, November 19, 2025. Formerly set for November 21. Alex Varga, WWE executive, deposition rescheduled to October 30, 2025. Andrew Schleimer, CFO of TKO, Endeavor, WWE entity, deposition now rescheduled for October 23, 2025. Also, other figures like former board members or executives, including John Laurinaitis, have already been deposed. Entities like Liberty Media and KKR, a private equity firm, are being subpoenaed or scheduled for depositions because they are believed to have been potential bidders in the 2023 sale process. Finally, not just individuals, documents and internal communications, emails, texts are sought, particularly those related to sexual misconduct topics, board discussions, and decisions made in 2022-2023. What plaintiffs are trying to prove? The shareholder plaintiffs are focused on several key claims. 1. Predetermined merger. That the process was rigged in favor of a particular outcome, the deal with Endeavor, from early on, rather than treating all bidders fairly. 2. Motivation linked to McMahon's power. Because of the sexual misconduct allegations, other bidders might have pressed for McMahon's removal. The plaintiffs argue that McMahon chose Endeavor because it was more likely to let him retain authority. 3. Breach of fiduciary duties. That board members and executives had duties to shareholders, to act in their best financial interest, disclose relevant information, and ensure fair corporate processes. The claim is they failed in these duties. 4. Transparency and disclosure of misconduct issues. How internal allegations, investigations, and non-disclosure agreements (NDAs) affected decisions. The lawsuit includes efforts to force the production of documents on sexual misconduct topics, and what role those played in driving McMahon to engineer his return and push for the merger. Key dates and upcoming events. October 24, 2025, Stephanie McMahon's deposition. October 28, 2025, Frank Riddick deposition. November 4, 2025, Paul Levesque Triple H deposition. November 12, 2025, Vince McMahon deposition. November 19, 2025, Nick Khan deposition. December 2, 2025, Ari Emanuel's deposition. Beyond those, we have ongoing subpoenas for internal communications and documents, and more depositions likely to emerge as discovery proceeds. Potential implications. This lawsuit, and particularly the testimony from people like Stephanie McMahon, come with several high-stakes implications. 1. Corporate governance scrutiny. If the court finds that the board or executives acted improperly, for example, hiding information or effectively allowing McMahon to steer the process for his personal benefit, that can lead to damages awarded to shareholders, changes in how such mergers are evaluated, or even regulatory consequences. 2. Reputational impact. As internal communications, NDAs, and misconduct allegations come to light, corporate image and trust among shareholders, fans, media, business partners could take a hit. Stephanie McMahon, having been in senior roles including co-CEO, may be especially scrutinized for what she knew and when she knew it. 3. Financial consequences. If the merger is found not to have maximized shareholder value, financial remedies damages may be granted. Also, future deals might involve stricter oversight, independent directors, or more rigorous bidding processes. 4. Precedents for mergers and board member duties. Especially in cases where founder or dominant shareholders remain involved after a sale, courts will watch how these issues are handled. This case could set precedent in how NDAs, allegations of misconduct, and personal power are balanced against shareholder interests. 5. Internal fallout. Depending on what emerges, board members or executives may face internal consequences, resignations, or pressure from investors or governance watchdogs. What Stephanie McMahon's deposition could reveal. Because she held multiple senior roles, co-CEO, board director, interim chairwoman, and chief brand officer, Stephanie McMahon's deposition is expected to be very revealing. Here are possible areas of inquiry. Her knowledge of sexual misconduct investigations or allegations, particularly those in 2022, how aware she was, and what discussions took place at board level. Her role or influence in board decisions surrounding Vince McMahon's return, what conversations were had, whether there was pushback, whether she supported or opposed certain moves. Her resignation timing and reasoning. She stepped down in January 2023, shortly after her father unretired and resumed control. Testimony may probe whether that was voluntary, pressured, or related to internal disagreements. Communications with other executives or with Endeavor. Emails, texts, or meetings involving her, her father, board members, or other decision makers about potential sale offers or bidders. Challenges and what's not yet known. There remain several uncertainties, and the legal process has a lot of moving parts. Confidentiality of depositions. Many deposition transcripts and internal documents are not automatically public. Only when filed in motions or used in court exhibits might they become available. Scope of discovery. There has been dispute over how broadly sexual misconduct topics should be included, i.e., how many documents, emails, texts beyond merely merger-related items. Plaintiffs have filed motions to compel production of non-privileged documents covering certain time periods. What other bidders offered? There's some information from WWE regulatory disclosures about anonymized bidders, strategic party 1, financial sponsor 1, and the share price ranges they offered. But the detailed terms, conditions, and whether those bidders would have insisted on McMahon's departure is part of what the plaintiffs hope to uncover. Timeline of the legal cases. Here's a rough timeline of how things have unfolded, to set context. Early to mid-2022, allegations of sexual misconduct against Vince McMahon become public, board conducts investigations. June 2022, Stephanie McMahon becomes interim chairwoman, county CEO during some leadership reorganizations, Vince McMahon steps back temporarily. Late 2022, Vince McMahon resigns, new board reconfigured. January 2023, Vince McMahon returns via written consent, Stephanie McMahon resigns. November 2023. Shareholder lawsuit filed Laborers District Council and Contractors, Pension Fund of Ohio among plaintiffs alleging breach of fiduciary duty etc. 2024-2025. Discovery phase, motions to compel documents, scheduling of depositions, subpoenas issued. Autumn-winter 2025. Major depositions set for key figures like Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon, and others. Resolution likely depends on what comes out. What to watch for. For fans, investors, and observers, here are some critical things to look out for in the coming weeks and months. Content of Stephanie McMahon's testimony. Her statements could confirm or contradict claims about the internal board's role, knowledge, and decision-making. Document evidence. Emails, texts, NDAs, especially those linking misconduct allegations to business decisions around the merger. Other depositions. How Ari Emanuel, Endeavor, Vince McMahon, and board members answer questions, especially about alternative bids and whether internal processes were respected. Court rulings on discovery. Whether the court compels WWE McMahon to turn over broader materials, especially around misconduct, or whether they are allowed to limit production. Settlement versus trial. Whether the case ends in a settlement with financial or governance condition, or goes all the way to trial. If it reaches trial, public revelations may increase.